Here are the basic supplies you'll need for this painting. You don't have to be fancy with a palette. You can just use a paper plate. And we just have some basic colors here. We have a light blue, light green, a yellow, an orange, burnt sienna, burnt umber, black, and white. Black and white are good for making the paint colors lighter and darker. If you don't have these exact colors, it's okay. You can always mix or just work with what you have. This is just going to be a fun painting, so you can improvise. And then I just have a few brushes, simple brushes, different sizes for different purposes. The nice big hairy brush here is good for the background, and I could get some good texture with that. Then I just have a large one and a medium angled one and a small one. But just, again, you can work with what you have. And then we just need a cup of water to clean off our paints and paper towel to dry them. Hi, my name is Jim, and I'm going to show you how to do a painting in about 30 minutes. We're going to do a beach scene today, and so just grab your paints and get a canvas or a piece of paper, whatever you have around, and we'll get started. I'm going to first start out with the big and hairy brush because I'm going to paint in my sky. So I'm going to take the big and hairy brush and dip it in some water and get some light blue paint. Just get a good amount on there, and we're going to start going across the top of our canvas here with some light blue. See how I just kind of painted in there? If the paint seems too thick, you could just add a little water to it, thin it out. We want this paint to be kind of thin because we want it to dry fast so that we could do layers on top. So I'm going to first just go across with my light blue right now across the top, about a brush width wide. It really depends on how big a piece of paper or canvas you're working on, how big this band of blue is. But this is going to be our sky, and we're going to have some room we're going to do a little ocean and a little beach as well. So again, I'm using about a brush width. And when you get to the edge of your canvas, if you have a thicker canvas with that wraps around, you could paint the sides of the canvas. That always looks nice. So we'll start there. And now what I'm going to do is take my paint, my blue paint, I'm going to add a little bit of white to it. See, I'm just taking a little bit of white and just going to mix that in there so I get it a little bit lighter than the color that I already have on here. And what I'm going to do is overlap the color that's there with my new color, my lighter blue. And I'm just going to overlap that a little bit. But I want to blend these colors together. So don't make it like a solid line. Pull some of that blue from above down into the lighter blue. And just have fun with it. You can have some good texture going on in there. It doesn't have to be this nice smooth paint lines, or you don't have to not see the brush strokes. I like the brush strokes. So once you have this next layer with the light blue, I'm going to add a little bit more white to our blue. Okay, and then we're going to do one more layer here. And again, each layer is about one brush width wide. So as you can see, I'm about a quarter way down the canvas right now. That's kind of a good spot where you want to be. About a quarter way with this sky. And don't forget, if your brush is feeling pretty dry, just dip it in water and then tap it a little bit so it doesn't get too, you don't want to get any drips on this. But the water does help the paint move around. So see how you can see that looks like waves in the sky here? I want to kind of eliminate that a little bit. So what I'm going to do is clean off my brush pretty well in the water and then dry it with my paper towel as well as possible. And it's pretty dry. It has a little bit of wetness to it. But I'm going to go lightly in there, really lightly, and kind of blend these colors together where they met. So up here, see, I'm just really just kind of very lightly blending these colors. And it's okay if you get some of the darker blue into the lighter blue. It's alright. It's not going to be perfect. It doesn't have to be. The sky isn't just one solid color blue. You have a lot of different colors of blue going on in there. So just blend them so they don't look like just straight lines. So see how they kind of blend a little bit better now? And so I'm going to do one more. Now my brush is clean. It might have a little bit of blue on there, but now I'm going to just take it directly into the white now. With, you know, and it's okay if it's tinted with blue because we're going to do one more band across here with this white. And see, it's got a little blue, and that's good. Don't forget to kind of get the overlap the blue that's right above it. So these, we don't want to have any spaces in our canvas. We want to have the sky be consistent. And so what I'm going to do again is wisp some of that blue or some of that white that I just painted into the blue so they blend a little better. Yeah, but you can keep some of these little textures in here. I'm just trying to avoid having it be stripy. You don't want it to be a solid stripe. So you can keep some of those textures going. One more thing I'm going to do now is take a smaller brush. I'm going to go with my medium angled brush here. And I'm going to take some of this lighter blue that I mixed maybe right here in the middle. And I want to give myself a horizon line so I know where my ocean's going to be. So I'm going to do a horizon line. I want to give myself plenty of room to have, we're going to have an ocean and we're going to have a beach. So a good rule of composition is to have it about thirds. This is about maybe a little bit more than a third of the way down the canvas. So I don't want to cut it in half. I'm going to do right about here. I'm going to go across. I need a little more water on there. Just go across the canvas as straight as possible. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to try to do a pretty straight line. And it's okay if you have some gap here because we're going to put a sunset in there. So right about there, that gives me a line so I know where to stop. That's going to be where my ocean is. And I can also, if I want to get fancy, I'm going to do a shoreline too. So again, just a little bit of that light blue that we have. And I'll do a little shape here to make it look like the ocean's kind of coming in. It's going to curve in a little bit. Maybe we have a wave coming in and maybe it goes back up again. This line can change later on, but this just gives me an idea of roughly where my ocean will be. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my bigger brush that I had, the big and hairy, and I'm going to fill this in, fill in the ocean area. I'm going to use, again, like a lighter blue, maybe this mid blue that we have here. So what I'm going to do is mix myself a little bit more of this. Take my light blue and a little bit of white. And you can test it out. See if it's dark enough or light enough. You don't want it to be too light. Make it kind of, like I said, in the middle here. And so now I'll just fill in this ocean area. And this is going to be all the same blue for the most part. We could add some texture into it later on, but right now I'm just going to make it a solid, this solid medium blue. And what I'm going to do is go back in after I do this with the big and hairy brush. I'm going to go back in and get my horizon line a little straighter with my medium brush. For right now, I'm just going to use this big and hairy brush to fill this in. And you can see that I'm not using too much paint. Because again, we want this to dry. We're going to put layers. We need this to dry so we could get this painting done in about 30 minutes. Okay, so since this is an ocean, I'm going to try to make these lines pretty straight across. You can see the brush marks in there, so try to get them pretty straight. And I'm going to put that big brush back in the water right now. And I'm going to grab that angled brush, the medium one again, so that I can do this horizon line. Squeeze it back in my head for a second. So I'm going to just go in here and try to get this horizon line pretty straight. Just kind of go across. That's the one part of your painting where you want it to be pretty straight because even in the ocean there's waves, but if you look at the horizon line, that's always a nice straight line. And you can do the same thing with your shoreline here. You could kind of clean it up a little bit, but give it some little bumps in there. This is the ocean where it's breaking on the beach, and so it's going to be a little bit messy. Okay, so then you could put your medium brush in the water. And now I'm going to go to my the next side, my large brush, not the big and hairy, but the large guy. We're going to switch gears and go to him. And while this is drying the blue, we're going to put some of the beach in the bottom here. So what I'm going to do is, for my beach colors, I'm going to mix some colors. I'm going to take a little bit of water in my brush, and I'm going to use this burnt sienna I have here. Just take a little bit of that, and I'm going to add a little yellow. Just take some yellow out of the corner. Don't go directly in your yellow because you're going to need that clean yellow later on. And then you're going to add a bunch of white to that. And just pull that white in. That's why I like to put my white in the middle, because I mix it with so many things. And we're going to mix a good amount of this, because this is going to be our beach sand. Maybe a little bit more yellow. And you can see that we want it to be sandy. Kind of a sandy color. It depends on what beach you go to, what color the sand is, but it's usually like a light tannish color like that. So once you mix the sand color, we're going to go along the bottom here and just start filling in. Leave a little space between where your water is and this, because you're going to put white water in there anyway. But you can test it out. If you start putting the sand color on there and you look at it and you go, oh, I don't like that, just add a little more white or a little more tan, whatever. The burnt sienna, whatever color you need to add to it, add it in if it's not looking the right color. So see, I made it a little bit darker there. So now I'm going to fill in the whole bottom area here with the sand. Again, my brush is dry, so I'm going to dip it in the water a little bit and give it a little tap. Fill it in. Leave that little space there where you're going to have foam anyway. And I really just scrub. You can hear I'm doing the scrubbing. I kind of scrub the paint all off my brush, get it all off there, and get it into that canvas, get it into all the little cracks of the canvas. And so this is going to be just the one sand color we have right now. And see how I get some darks, I get some light spots. It's okay. It's the beach. It has there's footprints, there's all kinds of indents in there. It doesn't have to be perfectly one solid color. In fact, it's better if it's not one solid color. And so one technique I'm doing is putting my brush in different directions too. As I paint, kind of put it on one way, you can put it another way, just kind of go in different directions to give yourself the different textures. Okay? So once I have the solid color of the sand at the bottom, what I'm going to do is give the corners make them a little bit darker, because we're going to have a sunset here almost in the middle, and with the sunset we're going to want it to look like there's light casting right through on our beach, and then we're going to have the edges get a little bit darker because they're away from the sunset. So I'm going to take just a little bit of the brown that I have here, and see here I'm kind of tapping out the brush so it's not completely full of this brown. And I'm going to go right on top of this wet paint. Oops, I need a little more. Right in the corner here, go on top of the paint that's wet, and just kind of blend in a little dark. See how it's getting a little dark there? And go on this corner too. And blend it. You don't want it to be a stripe or anything. So just blend it in. Go nice and light if you have to with the brush. Blend, blend, blend. And if it gets too dark, don't worry about it. Clean off your brush really well. Clean in the water, dry it off, and then just use your brush by itself. Make it pretty dry, pretty dry. Just go lightly and just blend those colors together, like we did with the sky. You put a little at the bottom. See how my edges get a little dark now, and then it gets lighter as it goes in. And if you want it to be, if it's not light enough, just add a little white. You could put like a little white on your beach here, in the middle. blend it in, and that'll make it a little bit lighter for you. That's the beauty with acrylics, right? Most paints is that you could blend right on the canvas if you have to, as long as they're still wet. Acrylics dry pretty fast, so you only have a short amount of time where you can blend. And then once they're dry, you can just paint over top. But the blending part is a little window you have for that. All right, so now I'm going to go back to my angled brush, clean that off really well, because you might still have some blue in there. And what we're going to do is, in the beach, if you know where the water hits the sand, it's a little darker. The sand is wet, so it's a little bit darker on the edge. So taking my medium angled brush, this guy, and I'm going to get a little bit of that burnt sienna again, and add a little bit of white. You want it to be darker than the sand color we have here. But see, I'm going to go along the edge here, right on the edge of the beach, and do, again, maybe about another brush width wide. And I'm just going to do this little line that is the sand where it's wet. And make it, it doesn't have to be even. You want it to kind of be uneven. It's a little jaggedy. If your paint's too wet, just go up into the white area. And so we're going to do this little area here where it'll give it a little shadow to the wave, and it'll also make it look like wet sand. Just use the back of my head for a second. Do this side. Right all along the shoreline here, where the waves are breaking. And see how I made it uneven. So you kind of move the brush around in circles, and you can have little spots that are sticking out more than others. And if you have to blend it, you can blend it in a little. Again, if it's too drastic and you want to blend, clean your brush really well, and then you can blend right on the edge really lightly. Just take your brush really lightly, like you're barely touching the canvas, if you need to blend any spots. Oops, got a little dark there. Just have fun with it. So there's my little, later on we're going to go paint the white water on top of this, but we need this to dry so the white doesn't turn all brown on us. So that's our beach area. So what we're going to do now is clean off our medium brush once again. I'm going to clean it really well, drag it along the bottom of your cup if you have to. Get that brush nice and clean, and then nice and dry. And so now the next part we're going to do is the sunset. And we want to figure out where we want our sun to be. So I'm not going to put it right in the middle. For a composition, it's not best to have something directly in the middle. So I'm going to put it a little off center, maybe to the right a little bit here. And I'm going to figure out what size I want my sun. If you want a big, beautiful sun, you can make it nice and big. I'm going to do kind of a small sun, nothing too huge. So I'm going to take my medium brush here and just get some yellow, just yellow by itself. And I'm going to carefully go right in this area here, right above the ocean, and do a little semicircle. Sorry if I'm blocking, let me see here. Little semicircle. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's okay if it's not an exact circle, because we're going to put all this crazy wild orange and stuff behind it. And it's, sometimes when you see a sunset, it's hazy. It has all the crazy colors going on in the background. So if it's not a perfect circle, it's okay. That's just to give us an idea where our sun will be. Okay, so now we have the yellow. I'm still going to keep the yellow, keep the same little brush. And I'm just going to go along the edge here of where my blue is. And good, it's dry. And I'm just going to put a little yellow in the sky. We want it to be dry because we don't want the sky to turn green on us. So just put some yellow here and there. Just have fun with it. See how I just kind of rock the brush back and forth a little? It doesn't have to be exact spots. You could have it just end at, stop it here. It doesn't have to go all the way to the end. You can make it a little wider in here. This is the fun part. This is where it just gets fun. You just make this painting your own. I could put a little yellow stripes up in here, just a little bit. Little dabs. Just have fun with the brush, just kind of be really loose with it. Okay, and then I'm not even going to clean my brush. I'm going to go right in and get some orange. Okay, so my yellow and my orange will blend together a little bit. And I'm just going to go on top of this yellow here. And again, I'm just kind of moving the brush around to get these nice textures. I'm going to put some orange in. Now be mindful of your horizon line that we painted. Maybe it's best if we do that now. We'll go along and get this horizon line. This angled brush is really good for that, for getting a straight line. As you see, what I'm doing is using the brush so that the point is at the top, and I'm dragging the small end across. And I'm going to get this horizon line going with my orange. If it gets too dark, the orange, just put some more yellow in there. Kind of do any mix of the combination of the two. And I'm going to go right up to that ocean. And don't worry if you get any yellow or orange in your ocean, because later on we'll add some reflections in there anyway. So going over to my sun here, I'm getting really close to the sun. And once you get to the sun, it's okay. Just kind of roughly go around it. We don't want to have any white showing in here though. We're going to try to cover up all this white. So if you lose your sun, or if your sun starts to change the size, don't worry about it too much. When it dries, we could go back in and paint it. So again, I'm just using some orange and yellow, a combination of the two. My brush is really messy. It just has like a swirl going on in there, and that's okay. That's the beauty of this part. And keep doing my horizon line. Keep going across. You know, sometimes you get these little streaks. They look cool. I just keep them. You want to keep stuff like that. Okay, get some orange in here. And I have a little white showing right there. Okay, so now I basically have my whole canvas except for where the white water is. It's all covered. Let me make sure there's no white showing, no canvas showing. Now that you have it covered, now you can go back in and just work with the sunset a little bit more. I've got my paint a little thick, but I want to thin it out again because we're going to put some palm trees on top of this. So we want to work with layers. So we want to try to thin this paint out a little bit. So I'm cleaning off my medium brush really well. I'm going to clean that off. And I'm going to go back in. If there's anywhere where the paint is really thick and the yellow here, just kind of smear it. Just kind of flatten that paint a little bit so it's not too thick. You can see where paint might be sticking up a little bit. Just go and flatten it out. With your medium brush. And let's see, it's looking pretty good. So again, here's where you could perfect. If you want more orange in your sky, more yellow, go right ahead. I'm going to get a little more yellow. I think I want some more over here. So now you could your blue should be dry, so you can just put it right on top. And you can have little pockets here where the blue's showing through. Just have fun with it. I'm going to put a little more yellow over here. I'm going lightly though. I always paint a little lightly when I'm doing the next layer. You don't want to press too hard because even though the paint's pretty dry for the touch, if you press too hard, then you might start to get the paint underneath will mix in, and we'll get that greenish color that we don't want. So there's some good yellow. Maybe I'll put a little bit more orange here and there. Some little spots here and there. I think that's pretty good. You can work on that as much as you want. Take your time with that. I'm going to move on to the next part. We're going to put some, let's see, reflections, while we're using this orange and yellow, we're going to put some reflections in the water. So I still have some orange and yellow on my brush, and I'm just going to use the brush the same way I did the horizon line. Just get it to be nice and sharp, like a shark fin. And then just go across and put some little spots here and there that are reflections from the sun and the sunset. We're going to add some waves in here later on, but right now, since we're using the orange and the yellow, I'm going to take advantage so I don't have to clean off my brush. And that's a lot of yellow, so what I'm going to do is go back and put some orange in here. Just here and there. These are just little waves. All right, that's pretty good. And maybe right near the sun here will really play up the reflection. So what I'm going to do is work my way down from the sun. Some yellow. Might need a little white in there too. Let's take a little bit of white with our yellow, mix them together. Just right here, really lightly, put some little spots that are reflections of the sun. And if you lost your sun, now's where you can go back in and lighten it up or try to redefine it. So my sun's creeping down into my horizon, and that's okay. Just kind of right there on the edge. And while you have this light yellow, you could add some of this into the sky as well if you want. A couple little streaks here and there. Okay. Now I'm going to clean off that brush, or actually put that brush in the water, and we're going to do a couple of palm trees. So I'm going to take my small brush now, my little guy, it's kind of rounded, and dip that in the water. And I'm going to use a combination of my burnt umber and black. Just drag these two colors together a little bit. I like to do a little combo of them. And what I'm going to do is paint a couple palm trees in here. So first we're going to work with the trunks of the trees. And let's see, I'll start with maybe one going over here. So what I'm going to do is have it start in the sand and bring it up into the sky. And we'll have all these fronds. It's going to go off the page. It's okay. So I'll start right over here. I'm going to just lightly pull this color up. Just make it nice and thin first, because you always can make it thicker, but once you make it a certain width, you can't erase paint too well. So start out nice and thin like that. Let me get on the other side of this. So I have it go up to the sky here. Let me go over it again. And you might start picking up some of the color from the sky. That's okay. It could just be reflections. So right there, I got a good trunk going here. I'm going to bring it right down to the sand. I give myself a little space here. The trunk is just hiding into the sand. These are the nice, tall, thin palm trees. Now, palm trees come in all different shapes and sizes, so if you did start out, if it's really thick, it's okay. Palm trees come in every shape and size you could think of just about, so if it's wider than this, it's alright. And I'm going to do a second palm tree. That's going to be my tall one. This is just a trunk for now. I'm going to do another one over here on this side. But I don't want to ruin my sun. I want to get it kind of over here, give myself plenty of room. So if it's easier for you to start at the top, you can, or start at the bottom. Just somewhere in this area. I'm going to start at the top so I know where it's going to end. I'll do it right about here. And this time, I hope I'm not blocking, so I'm going to bring the color down. And I'm going to make the tree gets a little bit wider at the bottom. I have a lot of paint on my brush, and that helps you cut through the paint that's underneath. So there, I'm going to have it end right here in the sand. And make it a little wider. So that's my second palm tree. So now I'm going to switch back to my medium angled brush. Clean it off really well. And we're going to paint the fronds on this palm tree. Or both these palm trees. So these are kind of silhouetted by the sunset. So I have a light green, and if you have a darker green, that's great. But what I'm going to do is make this green darker by taking my green, and I'm going to take some of this black brown that I mixed already, just a little bit. Get some of that on your brush and mix it in. Always start with a little bit. You can always add more. And I'm going to try to get this green to be darker. Black, brown. Okay. That's pretty good. So see how I have like this darker army green? And so now I'm going to paint the palm fronds in here. So I'll start with this little guy. What I do is, again, make my brush nice and sharp, like a shark fin. And I'm going to start with the shape of the palm trees, the palms, like the center of them. Oh, that was a little messy, but it's okay. I can fix it, so this is good. So there's going to be one there. We'll do one here, one here. And this green is a little light, so I'm going to add a little bit more of my black and brown to it. One here. And just do it like a kind of like an umbrella. These are just this is just the outline of the palms, so I know where they're going to be. And then I'm going to paint the fronds in there. So again, if you need to make them a little darker, you can. And don't worry about the edge of the painting. If you go off the edge, that's okay. Here, I'll show you with this one up here. I'm going to make this one bigger. But see, it's going to go off the painting, and that's all right. It doesn't have to be within the painting. So, give myself an outline of where these palms are going to be. So that's a good start. Okay, and then now I'm going to switch to my smaller brush. And I'm going to paint the fronds in there. So I'm going to take my smaller brush that's cleaned off. And now I'm going to go on each palm tree, or each palm, and just kind of paint these little fronds. What you're doing is going from the outside in. Like that, to make them look like fronds. You're going to go on each one of these little spokes here. Just like that. And they don't have to be perfect. If you're fighting the background, that orange or yellow, if they're still pretty thick and drying, just go over top again, a second layer with that. These palms, they take practice. So, by the time you're done doing all these, you'll be a pro. But they do take a little practice. You just go along the edge. Like that. And once they get to the middle, they all overlap and it's okay. Alright, so we're going to do this one. And as you're going along, if you think you need another palm frond in there, just add another one. You can have as many fronds as you want. Look at that, coming along. Some people like to add coconuts to their tree. You could do that if you want. Or put a little coconut on the ground. You can have this frond, maybe I'll keep this one frond, like you're seeing the side of it, so I keep it like that. So I keep adding some black and brown to my green, so it's a nice darker color. Okay, now I'll do these guys on this side. And you can still see the green in there, so it's not completely silhouetted. So do the top now. Okay, do the bottom. Once you get to the trunk, you just overlap it. And the top. Do the bottom. And then the top. Now I'm using a lot of paint. Now is where you could be really thick with the paint because you already have the other layers underneath. And it's okay to be thick with your paint now. These fronds. All right, just got a couple more steps and we're finished. I went a little over half an hour. All right, and if you want to add more palm trees, go for it. In the middle, I'm going to fill it in a little. But those are just 2 palm trees. You can always put a little hammock in there if you want. All right, so clean off that small brush really well once you're all finished your palm trees. You gotta clean it really, really, really well because we're gonna use white now. Okay, so the last step is we're gonna do the waves in the ocean, the white water, and put some waves in there. This is my favorite part. I love doing the white water. So I got my little brush nice and clean. See, there's nothing on there. And I'm gonna try to find a bunch of white. And you could really get the white on there really thick on your brush. See how I have it really thick? And now I'm just going to go across the white water here and make it all look foamy. Even though the canvas is already white, right there, what I'm going to do is go overlap into the ocean a little bit and overlap to little dots here and my wet sand and just have the paint nice and thick. Have fun with this. This is a fun part. I think I like this part the best. And once you get to your palm tree, just be really careful. Don't paint over that trunk. And go on the other side of it. That's why we did the palm trees first. So we didn't have to go through those with the white water. We didn't have to paint through that white water and get the paint all white. Alright, so dabbing it on there. Again, this doesn't have to be a perfect size. It could be, you can have some areas that are thicker than thinner because of waves crashing, you know, so it doesn't have to be all one exact size. Put some little dots where the foam is coming out of the water, have it maybe shooting up a little here and there. Okay, just dab it on, dab it on. And if at any point you need to work on one detail, of course, just pause this video and you could go back and if you want to work on more palm trees, you can. Alright, so I've got my foam all in there. Just have fun with the little splashes. And then maybe I'll just put, maybe it's not a huge beach day, it's just some little waves, but put some little white caps in there. So just pick some white, just drag it along here and there. You could put a little foam in that too. But I'm not going to go into detail of a crazy wave. Maybe it's just a flat day. It's just a nice, quiet water. If it gets really thick like that, just make it look foamy. We'll give ourselves some little white caps in there. And maybe right here where the beach is breaking, you could do some little lines where the waves are coming in. Do a couple way in the distance here. Don't forget to get on the sides of your palm trees over here and here. You have some stuff go off the edge. Okay, and that's about it. That should be your painting. Oh, one more thing. Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing is we're going to do shadows for the palm trees. Because otherwise it just doesn't look right. Let's clean off our tiny brush, our little brush. Just get a little bit of that. We're going to use that dark sand color and I'm going to get a little brown in there. And right here where the palm tree hits the beach, just kind of do a little line on an angle coming away from the sun. Just like that, a little shadow. And on this side we'll do a little shadow. If it gets too dark, just take some water and water it down a little bit. And water it down, and just like that. So now it looks like the sun is coming and the trees are in the shadow. Okay, well thank you for joining me today. I hope you like doing this painting. I have a lot of fun with it. And add anything more you want to it. If you want to put a nice hammock in there, go crazy. You can put some stuff on the beach, a little crab. But that's just the basics for you. All right, thank you. Have a good day.